Yeah, all right. So we teach a ton of songs here on PapastachePop, but we never really focus on truly beginner guitar players. This is going to be a little quick intro on a few chords and maybe one strum pattern. And down below there's a link that's more in depth when it comes to strum patterns and all that kind of stuff. So if you're a beginner, definitely click the link below. It's going to give you a lot of different strum pattern ideas and options for beginners, or players that have been playing for a long time and just never really think about it. Different ways to improve, break down strum patterns. We're going to go over some chords right now and stuff like that to kind of help the beginners out there, which there's millions of us out there who are beginners, to get on our way so we can play all the songs that we hear on the radio and that we have on our albums and all that kind of stuff that we know we can do. We just need someone to show us the way. So let's zoom in for a closer look. All right, so let's break down some easy beginner chords. Now, I would say probably the easiest chord that I know of is an E minor. Now, you can do this two different ways, but it's basically the same idea. So we're going to take fingers 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, either way you want to do it. 1 and 2 is cool because you can move right to other chords very easily, right? So we'll go 1 and 2 on the A and the D string. Now that's important to know the names of the strings. We could memorize this little saying, Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie, right? So we got E, A, D, G, B, E, right? So knowing those are going to help you, all over the place, all the way down the line, knowing where to find chords, just memorize the strings. It's awesome. There's only 6, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to play on the tips of our fingers. Now you can see those lines in my fingers right there. Now it doesn't hurt because you'll develop calluses, right? Which is, let me add one other point. Take one finger, go on any fret, press as light as you possibly can, and pick the note. Then each time you pick, put a little bit, like minute amount of pressure down, a little more and a little more, until you fret the note and it comes out. Now we want to play closer to this fret, right, than this fret, because there'll be a tendency to get more buzz, right? So we want to play more towards this side of the guitar to get a nice clear ringing note. These are the frets right here, these metal bars. But if I say fret 1, we're not talking this, we're talking the space between. Fret 2 is the space between these two metal bars, right? 3, etc. So back to the chord, we're going to take our first finger and we're going to put it on that second fret, second string down, which is the A string, and we're going to keep our fingers nice and rounded. And what I mean by that is we're going to be on the tips of our finger, and we want to have a C shape, not like this, more like this, so we're not going to hit the string below the string that we're hitting and muting it out on accident. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, the exact same fret, the string below, the D string, and we're going to put that finger down as well. Now what you can do is test to make sure that the note is ringing. Right, again, work on that finger pressure so you're not pressing too hard and, making your fingers bleed, right? Doesn't take that much pressure. It just, you have to distribute the pressure equally, and that's the tough part. So it's getting used to putting the right amount of pressure per finger on the strings. Now, with an E minor chord or an E major chord, you get to hit every single string. So don't grip the pick too tight either. Keep a nice loose grip. Some people play with 2 fingers like this and their thumb like this. Other people put the pick on the side of their first finger, and just whatever's comfortable for you, nice and loose, just strum all the way down. Now when you're starting out, try starting with a thin pick. It's easier to play acoustic guitars with thin picks in the beginning. And you just strum all the strings. We're just strumming, hitting the top string all the way down. Now from there we can do another chord, and we'll do the cheater version of it. Still is a legitimate chord, but we're not going to play the whole thing. What we can do is we can take this second finger and move it to the 3rd fret, the top string, right? The E string, that's a G note, and this becomes a G chord. We can do the same thing and hit all of the strings. So now you have right? So you have two complete chords. Now if you want to make that a more legitimate G, you can add your ring finger down to the 3rd fret, right? Same fret as this finger, all the way down on the highest string, which is also another E string. Very, very common chord, right? Later on down the line, what you'll see is a very common way to play G as well is to take this finger up 1 string, so it's on the B string, 2nd from the bottom, and put your pinky down too. Right? That's kind of the standard rock and roll G. You're going to see that all over the place. You can do other chords that same way, right? That's a C chord. So you can keep 2 fingers in one spot and get 2 chords by just moving your other 2 fingers up a set of strings. Okay, so this is fine. This is an E minor. This way is perfect in the beginning to get that G down. And then try adding, right? Distribute that pressure evenly. Strum all those strings. Once you get there, scoot that finger up, tuck that other finger in, and now we're using all of our fingers. One at a time. Keep those fingers round so you're not muting out the string below. See, if we're too far angled like this, downwards, and we're more diagonal than rounded, what can happen is you can mute off those other notes below. Right? So if we're on the tips, it gives enough space for the strings to ring out without being muted. We're right on the tips of our fingers, and we have enough space on both sides of the strings so we're not muting anything out. Okay, so from there, another very popular chord is a D major. Now, once we start going down this route on the chords like a D major, we're not going to be hitting all of the guitar strings. So we're going to start being mindful of not hitting the 2 top strings. A D is from the D string, or the 4th string, or the 3rd string down, right? And you're going to play those notes from the open D string down. Now what we would do is we would take our 1st finger and we would go to that G string, the 3rd string from the bottom, 2nd fret. Now our 2nd finger, we're going to do the exact same thing, same way, on the bottom string, the high E string. Same fret, same everything. And then with our 3rd finger, this is the tough part, is getting our ring finger in there, remember, on that tip, so we're not going to mute out the string below. And then what we're going to do is hit those 4 strings from the D string down. So we got Dynamite, Goodbye, Eddie. Right? So now you have 3 very common chords. Or, and then D. Now I'll show you 2 more because these next 2 chords are very, very similar. An A minor chord. Right? Now we're going to play from the A string down, the 2nd one from the top down. And we're going to have a nice minor, kind of sad sounding chord, so don't cry. But anyways, we're going to do A open, and we're going to use our 2nd finger, 2nd fret, D string, and we're going to put our ring finger right below that on the G string, 2nd fret. Now from there, we're going to go to our 1st finger on the B string. Now the trick with this one is tip again, because we need to have an open E right below that 2nd finger. So we're going to hit from the A string down. Remember, one at a time. So in the beginning, your fingers might hurt a little bit. They shouldn't really hurt, because that may mean that you're playing too hard. You're putting too much pressure on the strings. But it's natural and normal for our fingers to be a little bit sore. You know, they're not used to being on metal strings. We haven't developed calluses, which you'll develop very quickly if you practice, right? So it's basically like a pad or a nice little pillow for your fingertips so they don't get all tender and such, right? Now from there, if we took this chord, we could also do a C chord by just moving one finger, which would be our ring finger, and we would put it on the 3rd fret of the A string. So now we're hitting the same strings, the A string down, but now we have... Right? So you have a number of chords that are fairly easy to play that are very common. I mean, they're in hundreds and thousands of different songs, right? We'll work on some more chords later, but one thing we want to do is once we get one chord and just practice one chord, we can do a strum. Now think of strumming like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very humble beginning in strumming, right? So if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, just like you would naturally count, right? It's basically in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Start over after 4 back to 1. And we just did it like that. On every number, you're just going to do a downstroke. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now once we get that down and can hit the right strings and strum across, we can do an 8th note or an upstroke in that same amount of time, but now the count's going to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So what we're going to do is on the numbers, we're going to do downstrokes. And when we say and, we're going to do an upstroke. But this time we're only going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. That's how we're going to count it. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, just downstrokes. And on 4, we're going to do 4 downstroke. And on the and, we're going to do our first upstroke. So let's hear how that's going to sound. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. Now I really want to stress counting out loud. It's very important because we can naturally count with a basic rhythm, right? If we just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Like that, like we're counting to 10, we naturally kind of do it in time. So if you just count aloud to 4 and then repeat to 1, but we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, it's going to help our arm to keep time. We want to keep our arm moving, right? Obviously we're doing it slow, so it's going to, you know, our arm's going to stop a little bit, but we're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So even if you're not strumming the strings, when you say and, bring your arm up, right? So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. That's going to be the start of our strumming adventure, right? So the link below, click that link and it's going to get way more into strum patterns and different things that you can do. We're going to take some of the same chords and we're going to attach a strum pattern or multiple strum patterns, different ideas to think about, different ways you can start to develop strum patterns on your own to kind of work with yourself or trick your brain into learning something new, but in an easy way to do it at a very beginner level that anybody could do. Now it's going to take practice, take it slow, most importantly be positive. It took me forever to get good at guitar, but I just kept with it. I just had fun, you know, just zone into like how cool it is that you can press, you know, on these steel strings or nylon strings or whatever you got and make sound. I mean, it's just awesome, and you just start to, you know, zone out on it and have fun, right? Don't get discouraged. It takes time for some people. Other people get it really quickly. We're all different. We're all going to get it at different times, different levels, whatever. Just most importantly, stay positive and relax. So basically, we're going to end up with the strum pattern. So click that link below and it'll show you how to do that kind of strumming.